Welcome, everybody. My name is Brian Marcus, and I'm the director of the Global eBay Partner Network. I appreciate you coming out here today. Today is about an experience. It's about a theme and a context. And I know a lot of the speeches you hear today are data heavy and tell you all the things you need to do when you walk out the door. I think today, for me, it's about sharing an experience and sort of a way of thinking as an advertiser and helping our publishers understand some of the things that we go through as advertisers and then figuring out how we can work together to get out of situations that a lot of advertisers find themselves in. I'm going to explain a little bit about getting out of irons and what that means. I want to make a big disclaimer. I am not a sailor. I know very little about maritime type of topics, but I do have a specific personal experience that helped shape my view about affiliate marketing and about some of the life challenges that I think our publishers go through. First challenge is getting to the next slide, which you'd think would be easier than getting out of irons, but is not. Could I have some assistance up here? Well, this is actually very appropriate. Because actually, let me just say right now that getting out of irons is about being stuck. And I'll share with you a little story I was pointing up here. You're going to hit the button and it will go forward, won't it?
Oh, you having minutes?
Yeah, I just want to get to the next slide. So while he's doing that, let me just give you a little bit of background. So I've been with eBay a little over a year and a half. Came to eBay with over 8.5 years of affiliate experience. I worked for Google prior to eBay and helped lead the Google affiliate network on the advertiser side. So in some ways, I've overseen probably somewhere between a couple thousand programs in terms of advertisers of all different sizes. Many advertisers find themselves in irons, and irons is sort of defined as a trap condition. So sailing, and I'll explain why I chose this as a theme. Sailing, when your bow is pointed directly into the wind, your sails can't catch wind, and you actually can't go anywhere. When I was 10 years old, and I was at overnight camp in the northern woods of Wisconsin, my parents came out after 4 weeks of sleeping in the North Woods with my cabin mates. My parents came out to visit and see what I could do, see my skills and things I've learned. And the one thing I chose to do was to take them sailing. I took them sailing in a sunfish boat. If many of you guys know what a sunfish is, it's a very simple boat. It's got one sail. It's got seats for about 3 people. And you go in there and you think to yourself, this can't be that hard, right? At 10 years old, took them out. Got some wind, got in the middle of Spider Lake, Hayward, Wisconsin, and all of a sudden, the wind shifted completely. In fact, it died. There was no wind. There were no waves, no water. It was just clear. You could see the fish down sort of at the bottom of the lake. And I sat there thinking to myself, what do I do now? And I will tell you, that moment has stuck with me to this day. And in many ways, it's a character-building exercise because here I am, many years later, standing in front of, thankfully, a group of people who decided to see me talk, telling you a little bit about the fact that you don't have to be stuck. The key is you've got a boat and you got wind. And when you bring those two things together and you bring some ingenuity and some thought and process, you could turn that boat around, you can catch the wind, and you can be able to change your direction. Now, the big challenge for us, and eBay is probably one of many. And I will say right now, I'm not going to make a big pitch for eBay. I just will have to use my experience as eBay to tell this story, is we're a big program. We've got over 40,000 publishers. We are a network that's been around for many, many years. It's a mature program. I came into this role knowing that and understanding that it's about optimization. And it's about the little things. It's about being close to your partners and understanding how to reorient them and reorient yourself. So today is really about navigating shifting tides. We know, and this is probably like every other speech you ever hear, the tides are turning, but I love the concept of just thinking about this as the big boat, right? There's many things happening we're going to talk about today, and I'd love to hear, hopefully we'll have enough time to hear from you guys and see what kinds of experiences you have. But the key is when you find yourself in a situation, we launched our network, private network in 2008. We took our program in-house, and we decided to build our own infrastructure, pay our own publishers with our own systems, and track and report. And we found a lot of tailwind with that. There was a lot of enthusiasm. In fact, I'd say even today it feels really good. But I know, after seeing thousands of programs, that there's always a spot where you find yourself in a situation where you have to change. We've gone through it this year, just in terms of the way we're approaching affiliate marketing and the way we're approaching our partners. And I felt it probably more acutely this year than I have ever before. But the key is to figure out how to weather those changes. And there's lots of ways to do it. It's hard to speak to 40,000 publishers individually, but there's ways to signal to your publishers what's important to you. So one of the most interesting changes that I've seen over time is on the advertiser side. So the advertisers are finally catching up to you guys. Now, by the way, how many people, just show of hands here, are publishers? How many are advertisers, merchants? And how many are on the network side? Okay, good. So I got mostly publishers. So one of the things I think has been really interesting is the ability to really leverage data. And on the customer side, and at a place like eBay, probably other very, very large programs, you name it, Amazon, Sears, you got data. You got a lot of data to play with. And it's not so much that you have the data, but it's actually getting to the point where technologies are catching up that you can actually use the data and use it to your advantage. So one of the things that affiliate programs have changed a lot is just not going for the mass. It's getting sort of micro-targeted. Things are starting to get clearer for advertisers. Segments are starting to get clearer for advertisers. Types of value is getting clearer for advertisers. And it's important, as we get more customer focused, that our publishers get more customer focused. It's also important to recognize that publishers don't always have complete control over the traffic they send. So it's that balance between the advertiser and the publisher has to take place, where we have to sort of look at each other and say, what can you do to help me get X, Y, or Z? New customers, loyal customers, customers in this category and that category. Tricky, because you don't always have the control. But I actually believe that today, as we work with our publishers, the key is giving that control to our publishers and pushing that control out, and making sure our publishers have that same data that we see, being transparent about that and giving them all that they can to work with us. But it's really important that our publishers get on board and actually take that information and work differently. So this number should be, for many people, burned on your head from many, many speeches. The Forrester number, $4.5 billion North American industry channel. This is a big channel and it's growing. I don't know if many of you saw Steve Denton yesterday. He's a colleague of mine at eBay. There's no excuse to not grow in affiliate right now. Everything is growing. And affiliate is really poised to take advantage of growth. Their AOVs are better. Conversion rates are better. Opportunities to attribute your sales are getting bigger. So there's no good reason why we shouldn't, as a team, be able to turn our boat around, be able to point to a new direction and sail together. It's really the alignment of the publisher and the advertiser, I think, that creates the friction. And that's something we've got to work on. But we are, as a large advertiser, we're poised and we're ready to start thinking about how to capitalize on these opportunities. And if you're not in that position today, I'm going to encourage you to think about how do you expand your frame and start thinking about the ways that advertisers are moving and get in that direction. To give you a feel for the ecosystem we live in, we have customers. So at eBay, we've got two customers. We've got the buyers and the sellers. And in fact, there's many opportunities, just as I say that, to think about how to monetize different types of traffic. You've got the very simple traffic of customers, consumers today, where you can just drive traffic and get a rev share for your sales. In the future, there's going to be all sorts of different types for marketplaces to get compensated on, things like the actual sellers themselves, driving seller traffic and monetizing those types of traffic. So something to think about. You've got eBay, who's looking at those buyers and sellers and thinking very, very deeply about what drives them, what are their behaviors. You've also got the publishers thinking about those very same consumers. The unique part about this ecosystem is then how do we fit our world with the publishers and help you achieve your goals? So as we make moves, as we shift our sales or we start to pull up our sales, we've got to think about all three parties here. How does this impact the publisher? How does it impact the consumers? And it makes it more complicated. I would say that almost every other program has that same exact dilemma. They have to think about their ecosystem. And I really want to encourage you guys to start thinking about you as being part of an ecosystem and thinking about the impacts of the actions you take and the downstream impact on what that has on the consumers and the advertiser themselves. You may not think of yourself that way, but we certainly do as we think about our publishers. And in many ways, the ecosystem that we live in at a place like eBay is even more complicated than this picture because we've got a whole bunch of other businesses that surround us. We've got technologies. We've got PayPal. We've got other marketplaces that live on our platform. We have different ways to target and technologies that support the eBay platform. So this is just a simple view of that platform. There's many ways that affiliates can help fill in the blanks and connect the dots for us. One of the things that I want to impress upon you today is as I sat there, a 10-year-old boy in a sunfish sailboat with no wind and panicked and very, very ashamed that I couldn't get out of irons, really unimpressed with myself. I thought to myself, well, how could I have done things differently? And the very simple lesson, rule that I'll say to you guys is it's about planning. So one of the things that maybe you don't get a lot of insight as you think about your advertiser programs is how much goes into planning on the advertiser side. I spent probably the greater part of 7 of my 12 months of this calendar year planning. I was planning for the next year. So I was already in 2014 back in March of 2013. I had to think about the fact that moving a big ship like eBay or Amazon or you name the program requires product changes. It requires merchandising changes. It requires thinking about seasonal types of offers and what's going to be big. It involves a whole bunch of dependencies on all sorts of departments within our world and making sure that we, the channel, are tied in so that when new things come out, we can track them. We can pay for them. So the amount of coordination is immense. And I want to impress that upon you because it often feels like, boy, these guys aren't doing anything. You're advertisers. I'm sure you look at that and say, why aren't they changing fast? Why aren't they taking the time to prioritize my needs? They are. They are. But the fact is, even with a large enterprise and even with a lot of developers, you still have to make priorities and changes and make decisions. And so I think one of the things I really would love to think about is how can publishers and advertisers get involved or involve each other farther up the funnel in the planning process. Because if you're stuck, the things you can do to change your course, right, is to change the direction of your boat or to think about how you can adjust your sails. And you can't do that without any thought. And then you have to be willing to try things that you haven't tried before. So in our case, there's all sorts of things that we have on our product roadmap that go out 3 years from now. But the question is, are our affiliates going to be willing to join us on those journeys, right? Are they prepared themselves to actually take advantage of those changes? And in many cases, I may have a large development team, and you may have a very small development team, and you're making trade-offs as well. And you're asking the question, well, how do I plan? How do I know what you guys are going to do next? And it involves a lot of communication. One of the things that is really, I probably in some ways am sort of overemphasizing is that from an advertiser perspective, prioritization goes from planning to the way that we look at customers. And so what we have to think about is as you get more mature and as programs become bigger, you have to make choices. And you have to figure out how to leverage your partners in different ways. So maybe in the beginning when you're a program and advertiser, it's a land grab. Any traffic's good. Go for it. You send me traffic, I book the revenue, right? I've seen those programs where the goals are go for it, volume, volume, volume. Then there's other programs like a program probably such as a large advertiser like eBay, where when you have the tools and you know which customers actually are the types of customers that align with your strategy, you go for those customers more. If you've got a strategy up at the top, for example, at eBay, from high up, the direction was grow the business with new customers. Hard to do that when you're a brand that's been around since 1996. Hard to do that when everybody in the world knows who eBay is. So how do you tap into that? Well, when I think about it, I look around this room and I think about the fact that the real smart guys in the room are you. And oftentimes, when I'm asked the question, well, how are you going to do that with the affiliate channel? It usually involves asking the question, well, I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to my partners out there and figure out what they're doing. And I think Steve Denton said it yesterday. One of the most exciting parts about being in this channel is that the people in this room are going to develop the next best thing, the next biggest thing. And it's not going to happen in any other channel. So my point here is there's going to be customers we may not be able to get ourselves. And those are the customers we've got to work together on and actually building a program together. So helping us find that white space and giving us ways to get to those consumers. And that requires sometimes very big changes on your behalf. If you spent many, many years optimizing towards one goal and the business starts to slow down and you have to go a different way, and you've built your site around this community, how do you all of a sudden change that? Well, the answer is you have to be always thinking about the next. And you have to be thinking about the fact that this community of people you're targeting today may not be the same community of people you're targeting with your advertisers tomorrow. And how do you guys remain more flexible? At eBay, and at probably any advertiser that's thinking about customer segmentation, there's a lot of metrics around the value of customers. And I'm not here to say, make a judgment of any type of value judgment on who's more valuable than others. But I can assure you that your advertisers are making those decisions one by one. And there are going to be times where new customers are going to be more valuable than existing, and then that pendulum is going to swing right back. So the key is to remain very flexible. The other key is to think about really, forget eBay for a second, forget your advertisers, think about where consumers are going. So one of the things, at least that eBay thinks about as well, remember that ecosystem, we're looking at the consumer and you're looking at the consumer, and the consumers are going everywhere. Advertisers are able to reach consumers in a much different way than they have been in the past. From my experience at eBay, there's an opportunity now to reach a global audience. One of our value propositions is to be able to give anybody, anywhere, anything. So as a publisher, think about the opportunities. If you feel like you're stuck, think about the fact that that's impossible because there are pockets of people everywhere that are looking to get inventory that they can't get today. So think about how you can drive those customers to places like in eBay where they can't get Levi's jeans or they can't get certain types of handbags or certain types of electronics. If you're there to catch those consumers in the act of buying, that's new business for you. That's new business for us. One of the exciting changes in probably the last 5 to 7 years has been tracking and policy. If we think about tracking and policy and how they work together, as we get more familiar with types of traffic and as we feel better about the types of traffic we're seeing, we open up our doors to more and different types of traffic. So in the case of multi-channel, online, offline, there's a ton of technologies now tying a coupon code that you get online to a redemption in store. People are carrying around their phones more than ever. We are a mobile-first company. We had probably the largest number of downloads of any e-commerce company last year as eBay. We know how important apps and mobile web will be to the future. We're going to have to be in that position to be able to accommodate that kind of growth through policy and through technology. And I am assuring you that other advertisers are thinking the same thing if they're not already. Same with social. Social traffic, well, you know, in the past, very scary, right? You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where the referrers are coming from. It makes big advertisers very nervous. But as you start to understand more about social behavior and the platforms that are out there, you start to get more comfortable, advertisers get more comfortable with that traffic. They start to think about the types of policies they want to accept that type of traffic, and then they develop tracking technologies and a number of different ways to monetize that traffic that open up doors for you. So if you have, for example, social audiences of your own, think about those ways that you can use those social audiences to leverage those, drive them to large advertisers that advertisers can't get themselves. It's hard to believe there's no win, right? Sometimes it happens, hard to believe there's no win, but it happens. And I feel like these are the kind of symptoms that you probably see when you're working with an advertiser that doesn't have a tailwind. You get the same old stuff. Your advertiser doesn't change their product selection. They're not dynamic. Get tired. Things start, your conversions start to drop. The pages, the buyer experience hasn't been touched in years. You look at that and you're saying, look, I'm doing all I can to drive traffic to this page, but I can't do the rest of the work. It's the work of the advertiser. That's a symptom of being in irons. And then you guys, you just get tired of it. You know, it's the same old stuff. How many years can you work with the same advertiser doing the same old thing? You need some new tricks. I think the question I have today, and probably more question than answer, is how can you be the tailwind? So if we're the boat and you're the tailwind, how can you energize the ship? I think it's worth asking yourself if you're in many, how many of you are in more than 20 programs? How many of you are more than 10 programs? How many of you are just in one program? All right, I'm missing, my stats are wrong because there's a whole bunch of unknowns. So let me just say this. I have no point to prove other than the fact I'm going to ask you if you're in the right programs. Because we have many, many publishers, thousands and thousands of publishers, probably trying to figure out how to work with eBay. I guess the question is, should they be working with eBay? Should they be working with other types of advertisers? It's important for publishers to prioritize their time. Because if you're going to work with a large advertiser, you got to put the time in. You got to think about what it is you can do to actually drive the needle. I can't tell you how many times I'm asked on a quarterly basis, hey, we have budget. Who can we work with on the affiliate side to drive this type of traffic next week? And it's often very difficult because, you know, this is a channel, this is an always-on channel. There's a consistent channel. It's a beautiful channel because it's a channel that consistently delivers at a very predictable rate. But the question is, how do you accelerate that very quickly? And if we don't know our levers, and we don't know who's out there and being able to change that, it's very hard to be able to say, I'm going to drive it with this publisher, and this is how we're going to do it. So I think it's important for you all to make the decision, am I in the right program? Because you got to put the time in. If you are not right now preparing for mobile, if you're not preparing for some level of social, and you're not preparing to go elsewhere, then you're going to miss out on expansion. So if you're feeling like you're stuck, there's 3 things that you ought to be optimizing and thinking about and building towards, because these are not going to change. There are things that will change. Goals will change. Leaders will change. But these are not going to change. These are things that are constant. And I have to believe, after 8.5, 9 years in this business, how many times have you heard people say, mobile's the future? Well, mobile is here. So if your sites are not mobile tuned, if you aren't thinking about mobile apps, and you're not thinking about how you connect and land people on sites through the mobile experience, then you're missing out. I am not saying that eBay is ready 100% for all these things as well. This is the ship that's turning, but I'm saying we'll be there. And we will be there in a big way on all 3 of these items, and all advertisers will be here at that same rate. The social world, it's really important. I think that in many ways, you know, I've been asked many times, what are we doing in social? And the question is, it's not what we're doing in social, it's what you're doing in social. Because you guys have social networks of your own. And to me, the simple, easy, best way to leverage your publishers is to work with them to talk to their communities. So it's a question of, are we leveraging your communities in our marketing? And lastly, do you have an opportunity and do you have a will to work in ways to capture global traffic? We have things like a global buying hub where we can expose eBay inventory to new geographies, new regions. We can give a customer an experience in Russia, Brazil, Latin America, which pulls together eBay for them in their language with inventory that we're able to ship to those locations, global shipping. So the question is, can you find a way to take your traffic, target customers that are looking for things in those countries, and send them to places like eBay? That's how you have to think. And lastly, I think I said it before, what's your levers? Be in a position when you're working with advertisers in a deep way to say, I can take that money and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, I go back as far as running affiliate programs back in the day for e-commerce where you didn't know what your publishers were doing with your money. You put together bonus programs that paid them for stuff they were doing anyway. That's not happening in the advertiser world anymore. People are they're asking you to be very accountable with every dollar you spend, because that dollar could go to paid search, go to display, it can go into email, it can go into CRM. Those are the decisions and trade-offs we make on a day-to-day basis. So help us understand what your levers are. Be transparent. Those are our best publishers. I love sitting down. I love seeing great results and going, there's just no way. How did this person do this? And being able to sit down and be like, I get it. Boy, I hadn't even thought of that. That's brilliant. You guys have those tools. Share it with us. Share it with each other. Help hone those types of skills in this community so that we can actually be in a position to get more momentum. Am I in irons again? It may very well be the case. Oh, man. Here I am again, middle of the lake. What to do? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Leverage data. We have gone, and it doesn't say it up here, but trust me, in the next slide you'll see it when it actually gets there. Leverage data. We have gone to great lengths as a corporation to not necessarily give you the most beautiful sets of data, like meaning we have work to do in delivering the interfaces by which we give you data, but we make a commitment, and I believe other advertisers are making a commitment to giving you guys more and more data. The real question is, as you get more and more data, are you using it? I am of the belief that advertisers should stop giving publishers data until they start using it. Because it's just not a two-way street that way, right? It should be a two-way street. It's not advancing. All right, we're out of irons. Redirecting. Leverage data. Data feeds are the type of data that I would leverage. We have an API. Lots of companies have an API where you can go and you have more data at your fingertips than you know what to do with. There is more product data, more SKU data, be able to leverage and integrate into your sites. Highly encourage you, if you're not looking at APIs, if you're not integrating these technologies, think about how you do it. Advertisers are moving towards conversion optimization. My question to you is, are you willing to give up space and inventory on your site for the advertiser so that they can actually make choices for you? I've been in this industry long enough to know that publishers don't like to do that. I understand it. You guys, in fact, in many ways know much more about what you're good at doing than we do. But I think there will come a point in time where advertisers harness their data in a much more powerful way, and they're able to actually make decisions on your behalf for you. And I'd ask you guys to be open to considering that, especially as we deal with thousands of publishers where you can't talk to publishers every single day. The next thing you're going to see are ad units where people are able to give you ad units to make decisions for you. Are you willing to take those on? Newsletters. So working together. I'm sure you get newsletters. I'm sure you get hundreds of them. What I'm suggesting is slim down the number of programs you're working on and read those newsletters. I'd rather you have less programs that go deeper and are true partners, and you're looking at those newsletters, not just, oh, there's my 100 newsletters, I'm going to grab the link off it and put it on my site. You know, there's a lot of information. We send out a biweekly newsletter. There's a lot of information conveyed in that newsletter. So integrating those newsletters into your operations, thinking about how you take those links and integrate them into your site, that's about conversion, and that's about capitalizing on that. Contextual advertising we talked about a little bit. And I'm going to suggest finding a way to be an early adopter. Stand out. Be willing to do pilots with advertisers. Be willing to be flexible. There are going to be times that advertisers ask you to do tests. Don't take it offensively. Understand that what's going on is the person in charge of these groups within advertisers are trying to prove the value of affiliate, not prove the fact that it's not valuable. So the more and more we can get data on how valuable this traffic is, the more funds go to this channel. So be willing to work with us and actually be part of that process. We have publishers who do tremendous services for us. We don't even ask them to do it. And these are guys that have been in our world for a long, long time. We have forums and community of people who post to our forums and our blogs and actually take the time to answer questions of other publishers. These are people doing it for no other reason other than the fact that they care about the program. We appreciate that. These are people that raise their hand. These are people that we know. We reach out to those people. We talk to them. They're not strangers to us. They may have names sometimes that you don't always know who they are, but we find ways to talk. When it really is somebody who's trying to do something really good, it's our policy to reach out to folks and say, hey, this is a great idea. Thank you for doing that. So my feeling is there's a conversation out there. We may or may not be able to contribute to every post on a forum. We have there should be no expectation that we can do it. And that's why, not every, what I'm saying is don't expect us to answer every question. But if we've got a good community and if advertisers do a good enough job building a community of publishers, there's enough people out there that know these programs that you can get a lot of answers. And we want those people to add to the conversation. So quite candidly, we went through a really big pricing change this year, really big pricing change. Couldn't have been, you know, pricing is the essence of affiliate marketing. It's one of the largest levers you have. And so you can imagine when you have a community of very loyal publishers that it's going to create conversations. And one of the things that we commit to, and we've done from the start, is doing our best to preempt those conversations with as much information as we can, and then expecting the publishers to raise issues and talk to us about things that concern them, and do our best to get back to them with answers that we can answer. Those guys that were out there on the boards talking about, boy, that's a big change. Hey, here's what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to think about it. Those guys are heroes. They are the guys that go out there and help other affiliates. They're not competing with you guys. They're actually trying to raise the level of the channel. And I actually really appreciate that and feel that that's where this channel has to go. We have spent so many years hiding our tactics to ourselves that we stop the growth of the channel by doing that. I ask you guys to take that forum and use it as a means to help each other. There's too much space out there to fight over the little space. Fight over the big space. You know, get big. Fight over the big space. And when you're out there, we will start a dialogue with folks that are constructive. And we have policies about that on our forum. It's not fun to wake up to a lot of conversation that's just negative spiraling. I love it. It's that moment when you look at a forum and that one person who is brave enough to say, hey guys, stop complaining. Here's what we got to do. And it's always that sort of kind of cycle where changes happen and then people get really angry about it. Sometimes they get a little, it hits them really hard. And then they start to, starts to marinate. The ideas start to marinate and they go, all right, I'm going to own this situation if I want to be in this program. And then they start to share ideas. And all of a sudden, the momentum totally shifts. And I think this is a strategic component of an advertiser program, is a really great community. So use that community to help the advertisers get their tailwind and give them ideas. Reach out, private message our forums, give them an opportunity to say, I have an idea for you I'd be willing to work with you on. Give that constructive feedback. So I don't have much more to say other than I think that there's an opportunity to turn the ship. I think there's an opportunity to catch that wind and work together. And I think it has to happen as a partnership. It has to happen as an ecosystem. We're willing to do a lot for our publishers. We have a lot of choices to make, and we have to think about what's most important to the greatest good of a large community of publishers. But we're quite willing to admit that we are that large ship, and we're quite willing to admit when we take a turn, when we make a pricing change, when we see something change and we see mobile on the horizon, see social on the horizon, those are the ripples on the water that says, hey, if we're not starting to help our publishers do these things, it's on us to do that. We got to start moving towards that direction. And by the way, you guys should be ahead of us on that. We should be catching up on that. I expect the more agile publisher to be jumping on those opportunities and showing us where we can land together. So I thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm willing to take some questions, but thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak here. Thank you. And I'm willing, I think we have a stand but no microphone. So I'm willing to actually repeat any questions that you may have. And I'd love to answer questions. We have time. Yeah.
I'm a merchant. My name is Krishna with DM Innovations. I was wondering what publishers in your program are actively promoting eBay offers, and also, if you don't mind sharing it, if you mind, that's okay too. What percentage of them are actually making sales?
Well, I will say this, and the question was, what part of our network is active and what's productive? And I think you've defined them as who's showing our ads and who's making sales. I'll say as an industry, because I don't know if I want to give away eBay information, but I'll say on average, it's my experience that advertiser programs on the productive side, you should have 1 in 4 publishers should be making money in your program, or you're not a very productive program. So if you focus correctly, and that number gets a whole lot bigger in terms of who's active, right? I'd say the vast majority of publishers drive some sort of traffic, but I'll be willing to say 1 in 4 publishers should be productive in your program, should be making sales, to get a feel for whether you're above the benchmark or below it. Oh, you have a microphone. Great. Great, we have a microphone. So now, be the tailwind. Help me. I gotta believe there's questions out there from publishers. And if not, okay, wow, this is too easy. 10. No, we got another question from the same guy.
No one's going to ask that. What's been, in your experience, what's been the latest trend of what kind of publishers are doing well? Oh, I'm sorry. In your experience in the past, say 6 months or a year, what kind of publishers are having a good success? Like, 5 years ago it was coupons, 4 years ago it was comparison shots, something like that. And any new trends, emergences that you've seen that maybe affiliate marketers here would like to know?
We are finding tremendous success with content publishers. It's been something, I think, when we took over the program in 2008, there were a lot of changes and a lot of different types of publishers that were working with us before we stopped working with. Now, that's changed. That's 2008, a long time ago. But I think one of the things we found when we shut the program was that those types of publishers that are closest to their consumers, that have affinities, tend to be finding new sources of traffic for us that we couldn't reach before. So everything from, you think about the really loyal, collectible type of publishers that have a real strong audience, that bring an audience that uniquely a coupon publisher could not bring. You think about publishers that talk about products, electronics, fashion, that have brought into the fold a whole set of consumers that were probably upper funnel type of customers, were thinking about making a decision, thinking about a product or a trend, and then end up buying because they believe the source that they're at. So I find that type of a publisher is a type of publisher where consumers are buying and they're not even thinking about buying. And those are the types of trends we've seen. That sticks out most in my mind in what kind of a unique new niche of publishers. I saw in Steve Denton's presentation, it's a smaller number of publishers, but they're driving a larger volume of traffic than they ever have before. The types of publishers that we're starting to see emerge are, we're hearing a lot from mobile publishers. We're hearing a lot from publishers that are starting to develop apps and want to work with us to link their app to our app and link their app to our mobile web experience. So that's been pretty exciting. We've talked to a lot of publishers that are leveraging their social networks. So everything I've given you so far is really a reflection of where we're seeing traction. And I think that that trend is going to continue. Got to help this guy out. Yes. Thank you for your questions. Appreciate
it. You'll excuse me if my question's naive, and we'll use eBay as an example. But to follow up on his question, if a publisher, I'm new at the affiliate area, but if a publisher has a niche following marketplace and publishes to that niche, how do they approach, say, eBay and find what they should be marketing, what product? In other words,
Yep.
I don't want to just sell your pencils if you know what I mean? I want to be able to hook up with the niche. How do I find in this big eBay corporate who can guide me to selling that niche?
I think so. There's a couple different things, and let me sort of surface some of the things that I talked about so it'll hit home. And maybe some of the words I used didn't hit home. But think about this: every 2 weeks we send out a note that tells you what's hot at eBay, what's going on, what is going to be sort of for you, the types of deals, and largely deals today, in the future, more about verticals like fashion electronics and other large verticals at eBay. But that's one way of us en masse being able to say, here's what's hot at eBay. And I expect that to get better, more targeted, and be able to get you more insight to what you're trying to do for eBay. And we have a team of people that are working on bringing those insights from our data directly to our communications, and I think that that's one way to do it. Secondly is the data itself. So as I said, I'll be the first to admit I don't think a place like eBay has the most beautiful reporting system of any network, but I do think eBay provides a lot of great data. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do is, as you start to work with eBay more and more, start to look at where your traction is and figure out from a category perspective where you're finding that traction. So in our world, you get paid for existing traffic and you get paid a whole lot more for new traffic. So if you're finding that certain types of categories are driving new traffic, then I would start to think about how you can develop content around that traffic and start to think about where you reach those consumers. I'm surprised I haven't fallen off this stage yet. Any other questions? Yes.
Just for my understanding as well, if it's not, I'm not sure if it's something you can share, but obviously when you just say think global, go beyond your current market that you're in, are there specific areas that eBay is focusing on in terms of geography, in terms of opportunity, and obviously where you're seeing some great growth as an organisation?
Question is where? So we're going to focus on 3 areas of global expansion. We're targeting Russia, Latin America, and Brazil. Those are the 3 big areas that we will start to build out our global buying hub, which is our ability to reach those customers through our existing .com website. So we expect our current base of publishers to be able to take advantage of that through our North American program and just find ways to leverage those communities out there to drive traffic to our .com site. Over time, I'm certain those programs get built out as their own standalone. Joining, for example, at eBay, you join over time the eBay.ru type of program. But for now, we go into markets first with our global buying hub, and we look at those patterns, and then we build our communities of publishers that want to work directly in those programs. And that's the way that we're approaching it. So clearly a lot of, there's so many places to go. I've been reading about India and the APAC region, but I think it's important for us to really focus on those three for the near term, and be able to build out enough collateral and content and a stronger base of publishers as sort of beachheads into those worlds. It's complicated though. So that'll be an interesting journey for us. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time, and have a great day.